dead, and a leprous commander healed in a muddy river. These aren't just stories. They're miraculous events that reveal the power of God through one man, Elisha. But what do these miracles mean for us today? Stay tuned as we unravel the incredible life of Elisha and the lessons hidden in his story.
In the rich tapestry of the Bible, one name shines brightly as a testament to God's power and provision: Elisha. A prophet of unwavering faith, Elisha carried forward the legacy of his mentor Elijah, performing miracles that revealed the glory of God. Join us as we journey through the life of Elisha, a man of miracles and faith. Our story begins in the fields of Abel-Meholah, where a young man named Elisha was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen. It was here that Elijah found him, and God's plan began to unfold. Elijah, a revered prophet of God, was nearing the end of his earthly mission. God had chosen Elisha to carry on this divine work. Elijah approached Elisha with a powerful gesture. He placed his cloak on him, symbolizing the passing of prophetic authority.
Let me say goodbye to my family, and I will follow you.
This moment marked a turning point in Elisha's life. He slaughtered his oxen, burned his plow, and shared a feast with his family and neighbors, signifying his complete surrender to God's call. Elisha's commitment was total. He became Elijah's servant, learning from him and preparing for the immense task ahead. Over time, Elisha witnessed the power of God through Elijah. He saw miracles, bold proclamations, and the unwavering faith of his mentor. This mentorship prepared Elisha for the day Elijah would be taken to heaven. Elijah performed one final miracle before his departure. He struck the Jordan River with his cloak, and the waters parted, allowing them to cross on dry ground. Elisha watched closely, knowing the moment of separation was near.
Ask what I shall do for you before I am taken from you.
Please let me inherit a double portion of your spirit.
Elisha's request showed his desire to continue Elijah's work with even greater fervor. As Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind, his cloak fell to the ground, a sign that God had granted Elisha's request. Elisha's journey as a prophet began with power and purpose, carrying the mantle of his mentor and the blessings of God. This is the story of Elisha, a prophet chosen by God to carry on Elijah's work. Through faith and miracles, Elisha's life revealed God's power and transformed many. Join us as we uncover his extraordinary journey.
Elisha's travels brought him to the village of Shunem, where a kind and generous woman offered him hospitality. Recognizing him as a man of God, she and her husband prepared a small room for Elisha to stay whenever he passed through. The woman sought nothing in return, but Gehazi, Elisha's servant, pointed out that she had no son and her husband was old.
About this time next year, you will hold a son in your arms.
No, my lord, please do not mislead your servant.
Yet, as Elisha had spoken, the woman conceived and gave birth to a son the following year. The child brought great joy to the household. But one tragic day, the boy fell ill while in the fields and later died in his mother's arms. Heartbroken, she laid him on Elisha's bed and set out to find the prophet.
Did I ask for a son, my lord? Didn't I tell you, don't raise my hopes?
Elisha returned with the woman to her home. He entered the room where the boy lay and closed the door, praying fervently to the Lord. Following God's guidance, Elisha stretched himself out over the boy, and the child's body began to grow warm. Elisha persisted, and soon the boy sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. The Shunammite woman fell at Elisha's feet in gratitude, then embraced her son. Through this miracle, God's compassion and power were revealed, strengthening the faith of all who heard the story. The land was gripped by famine. Hunger echoed across Israel as people struggled to survive. In the midst of this despair, the prophet Elisha arrived in Gilgal, gathering with the sons of the prophets to teach and guide them. As they sat before him, Elisha ordered his servants to put on the large pot and cook some stew for these men. Hungry and eager to eat, the servant obeyed, gathering what he could find. One man went out into the fields, searching for something edible. He found a wild vine and, not knowing what it was, picked its gourds and sliced them into the pot of stew. What seemed like a blessing would soon reveal its deadly nature. The men began to eat the stew, but suddenly they cried out,
"Man of God, there is death in the pot."
Poisoned by the wild gourds, they feared for their lives. Calm and unwavering, Elisha took action.
Bring me some flour.
He tossed the flour into the pot and declared,
Serve it to the people so they may eat.
what was deadly became safe through the power of God. To their amazement, the stew was no longer harmful. The simple addition of flour, blessed by God's hand, turned the meal from death to life. A floating axe head is a story of a remarkable miracle performed by the prophet Elisha, a moment when iron defied the laws of nature and floated upon the water. The company of prophets, students learning under Elisha, wanted to build a larger place to live. So, they set out to the Jordan River to cut down trees.
Let us go to the Jordan and cut trees to build a bigger dwelling.
They eagerly got to work, chopping wood. But then, disaster struck. One of the prophets was using a borrowed axe when suddenly the iron head came loose and fell into the river.
Oh no, my master! The axe was borrowed.
When Elisha heard the distress of the young prophet, he approached him with confidence, for he knew the power of God.
Where did it fall?
The prophet pointed to the spot where the axe head had disappeared. Then Elisha did something unexpected. He took a stick and threw it into the river at that very spot. And miraculously, the heavy iron axe head began to rise, and it floated. Elisha then told the young prophet to retrieve it, and he did. Praise be to the Lord. It is truly a miracle. The men celebrated. As Elisha journeyed from Jericho to Bethel, a seemingly routine passage was about to unfold into a moment of divine judgment. As he ascended the path, a group of boys came out from the city. They jeered and mocked the prophet, calling out, "Go up, you bald head! Go up, you bald head!" Their taunts were not mere childish insults, but a challenge to God's authority and his chosen prophet. Elisha, deeply offended by the mockery, turned to face them. With a righteous indignation, he invoked the name of the Lord. His curse was not born from personal wrath, but from the severity of their blasphemy against God's messenger. Instantly, as if summoned by the prophet's words, 2 bears emerged from the forest. The wild animals, acting as instruments of divine judgment, mauled 42 of the boys, leaving a clear and terrifying message. As the boys tried to flee, Elisha moved on, for he was called to greater things. This was not just about a prophet, it was about honoring God's chosen messengers. Naaman was a mighty warrior, commander of the Syrian army. His victories brought him fame, but he carried a burden no one could see at first glance. He was a leper, afflicted by a disease that caused great suffering. A young Israelite girl, a servant in Naaman's household, speaks to Naaman's wife in a humble yet confident tone.
If only my master would go to the prophet in Samaria, he would heal him of his leprosy.
Though she was a captive, the young girl had great faith in the God of Israel and the prophet Elisha. Naaman rode with his entourage, chariots filled with gifts of silver, gold, and fine garments. The king of Israel was alarmed, thinking Syria sought to create conflict. But Elisha, the man of God, heard of Naaman's arrival and sent a message. Instead of Elisha meeting Naaman personally, Elisha sends his servant with a message.
Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored, and you will be clean.
I thought he would surely come out to me, stand, and call on the name of the Lord. Aren't the rivers of Damascus better than the waters of Israel?
Naaman's pride almost prevented him from obeying Elisha's simple instructions, but his servants urged him to reconsider.
My father, if the prophet had asked you to do something difficult, wouldn't you have done it? How much more when he says, wash and be clean?
On the 7th dip, Naaman experienced the power of God. His leprosy vanished, and his heart was filled with awe. Naaman returns to Elisha's house, bowing humbly before him.
Now I know there is no God in all the world except in Israel. Please accept these gifts from your servant.
He offers gifts of gold, silver, and fine clothes, but Elisha refuses.
As surely as the Lord lives, I will not accept a thing.
Elisha's refusal showed that the power of God could not be bought. Naaman then made a vow to worship the Lord alone.